Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Howdy, Red O'Loughlin here on the Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I'm pleased today to have a fellow friend, an author, a college professor, lots of things, and we're getting to him in a very quick minute. His name is Mike Kowis, Kowis. And today I went to the doctor early this morning and got a good bill of health. I'm always happy to have that. I have another one coming up next week on a potential eye surgery that would make my life a whole lot easier. So it just seems like we get past the end of the year and now everything is working out well. I've been spending a lot of extra hours here in the office, catching up on this, catching up on that. I lost about 5 months last year with a case of shingles that just never ended. But anyway, I've gotten all over that. I am back into the real world. I've done 1 or 2 networking events. So my world is changing for the better. The weather here in the Houston area is changing for the better. And just everything is hunky-dory. I'm pretty pleased. So with that being said, that's my story. Let's get to Mike Kowis and we'll catch up on him. Mike,
hey, Red.
You are a lawyer, you're a college professor, you're an author, you're an off-road enthusiast. But today we're going to talk more about your authoring background. I want to spend just a little bit of time preliminarily on what you have out there, and I'll ask our production engineer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, to pull up your website when we get to that point in time. But you started writing how long ago?
About 8.5 years ago, my first book came out, but I started writing, of course, before that. Probably took me 4 years to write that first book. So probably a dozen years ago when I started writing seriously.
Okay, so the first book took you a little bit of time, like all of us. And then the next one wasn't so hard, and the next one wasn't so hard. Now you have 11 books out in 8 years, published books. And that's a different animal than just writing a book, is getting it published and marketing it and tracking it and getting those royalty checks and everything like that. So do you use the same editors that you use now today for the ones you did 8 years ago?
No, I've changed slowly over time, and I kind of like using different editors because I learn different things from different people. The first editor was a fellow named Jeff Smith out of New York, and he had worked with Scholastic, which is they publish K through 12 materials for for public schools, etc. And I learned a lot from him. He was really strong on just the grammatical rules and the writing. His I guess specialty was the Chicago Manual of Style or whatever. So he really knew the grammar rules inside and out, and we would have these long discussions on, is that a hard rule or is that a stylistic rule or whatever, and we debate back and forth how to word certain paragraphs. So anyway, I learned a lot from him. My next editor is a local fella out of the Woodlands, Kurt Locklear, and he's also an author himself. And I learned a lot because he was real big on white space, having some white space on the page. In other words, writing briefly and keeping things concise and small. And if you write nonfiction like me, using bullet points and not just being wall-to-wall words across the page. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because a lot of folks today, especially the younger crowd, used to Twitter, 280 character maximum on their post, that sort of thing. So they like these small chunks, to read in small chunks. And so that's kind of the style I took on after I hired Kurt for some of my books. And And it really has worked well. I feel like my writing has gotten better because I learned different things from different editors over time.
Okay, one of the main points that I asked you to come on today was that you're probably one of the more successful authors that I know. And by success, meaning literally for a new author to sell more than 100 books is, a rarity. But you do have those people who sell 500,000, 5,000 or more books. And so you sold that first book. And let's go ahead and bring up your website. I want people to see which book we're talking about here. Because I think on the second part of your website, uh, it, the part that says books. Actually, I guess the homepage. Yeah.
Yeah, you can just scroll down, you'll see
Yeah.
some of them.
Okay. So with that up there, the which was your first book, The 14 Steps to Self-Publishing, or
That
another
was
one?
my second book, but also my biggest seller. If you scroll all the way, well, scroll down a little bit, you'll probably get to it. It's called Engaging College Students, a Fun and Edgy Guide for Professors. Keep going. There you go, the one on the right. That's my first book, and it sold about 1,500 copies to the life of it since it came out about 8 years ago. But it's pretty much died off after the pandemic hit. That book is mainly about engaging your students. It's practical tips how to engage them in the classroom, not so much geared towards online teaching at all. And so I think that's I'm just speculating, but I think that's why sales kind of died off when the pandemic hit. But on the plus side, my self-publishing guide doubled in sales. So that kind of breathed new life into that one. So it kind of was a mixed bag for me when the pandemic hit.
Okay, but I remember you talking a couple times, and you talked about, okay, I wrote my first book, I gave away a lot of them, I spent a lot of money, had great expectations, and no, it didn't quite work out that way. But then you learned a lot of stuff. You wrote a second book, and whatever you learned worked because now all of a sudden things are starting to gel for you. So let's go through that process of what did you spend on that first book, and what did you get back, and then what did you do on the second book? Because I think marketing is really the part that changed your dynamic of actually having sales come in the door.
Yeah. So with the first book, which again was about college teaching tips, I actually had decent sales the first couple of years, like at least until I got to the pandemic. And like I said, it's been almost 1,500 sales to life, for the life of it. But I learned a lot. I spent way too much money. I think a lot of newbie authors do the same thing. I spent 7 grand on the first book, which meant I had to sell like 2,000 copies to break even, kind of thing. And so, like I said, I've sold almost 1,500, so I still haven't, earned my money back on the first one. The second one was the opposite. The second one just sort of came together very quickly. Like within 4 months of the first book dropping or being published, I launched the second book, and it's a much shorter book. It was a lot cheaper. I learned a lot of lessons on how to not overspend on cover design and editing, etc. And I still spent money on those things, but I was smarter about it, and I only spent about 1,500 to make the second book. Granted, the second book is only like 66 pages, and that's the one I'm talking about right now. Is the publishing guide, the 14 Steps to Self Publishing. So this is a small little book, 66 pages, and I spent 1,500 on it. So I knew going in I needed to sell about 700 copies to break even, and I've sold over 5,000 copies now, and it continues to sell. So this one right here is paying for a lot of the books that haven't paid for themselves yet, including the first one.
Okay, so one of the things that was important to you, and maybe from a financial analyst perspective, maybe just from the curiosity, but ROI. I spent this much. I'm selling it for here. This is my royalty. How many do I need to sell? I have asked other people, well, how many do you need to sell to recoup? And it's amazing. More people than I would have expected don't know how many. Number one, they don't know how much they spent. Number two, they don't know how much they need to recoup and actually be on the profit side. So is this part of your business demeanor that you need to know that information, or is this something that evolved out of you being an author?
I think it's kind of from day one. I'm a OCD, a tax attorney, so I'm always very numbers oriented. I'm kind of a geek like that, if you will. And so I keep a Excel spreadsheet, and every month, if not more frequent, I update my spreadsheet with the number of sales for each title. And I also update the spreadsheet with all my income from the royalties and sometimes speaking gigs, plus all my expenses. And expenses could be, whatever it takes to hire the right vendors to get the cover design and make the book, or expenses could be ongoing, like my Amazon ads. So I've had a pretty good success rate with a number of my Amazon ads on some of my books, not all my books, but I try them on all my books because I've had really good success. About a third of all my sales year in and year out come directly from my Amazon ads. So I've had a lot of success with that. But I go into it now that I've done 11 books. I kind of know that if my budget, if you will, is $1,500 to $25 per title, and that includes marketing through the first 90 days. And so I'll go in and I'll know it. Like last year, I came out with 3 new books. I launched 3 books, and all 3 of those I spent between $2,000 to $2,500. So I'm pretty consistent about what I'm spending, and I'm very cognizant of that. I'm thinking about the money, because the more you spend on that book, the more sales you got to get just to recoup your cost. And if you want to make a profit and have money prepared and ready to help you support the next book, you just have to be, pay attention to the cost. Don't buy stuff you don't need. If you don't need a book trailer or all these fancy things, don't buy those things. Just invest in things that make sense. If you want to win book awards, for example, on my first book, I won 3 book awards, which is great, but I only needed to win 1 so I can call the book an award-winning book. And I'd entered 10 contests, and I spent $800, and that was ridiculous. So all future books, if that's my strategy to try to win at least 1 book award, I only enter maybe 3 or 4 with the hope that I'll at least win 1. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I'm not spending $800 either. So, again, I'm thinking $800, I have to sell a lot of books to recover that cost, right? So everything I spend, I'm thinking about the number of books I have to sell to get that money back.
Yeah, probably a geek mentality on that one, I would guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so you teach college at night. You have your own business that you run during the day. You have your pleasure stuff that you do periodically with the off-road stuff. When do you find time for writing, and how consistent is it?
That's a great question. For me, I'm a night owl, and so I'm most productive at night, and especially late at night. There's less distractions. I find, towards closer to midnight, the better. But I'm also married and to a beautiful bride of 27 years, and what I discovered in my writing early in my writing career is that if I spend all my time in the computer room after dinner until 1 in the morning, then she's not so happy, right? And I'm a big believer in happy wife, happy life. So I try to strike a balance. And she goes to bed early at night. She wakes up early. And so what I do is after dinner, I spend that time with her until she dozes off, 9:30 or whatever, 10 o'clock at the latest. And then I'll go, walk into the old computer room and fire up the laptop and then work the rest of the evening. And that works best for me. And I don't do it consistently. I wish I did. I wish I could tell you I do this every night from 10 p.m. to 1 or something like that. But that's not true. I do it when I can, when I think about it, when I have the energy. And you just have to make time. Sometimes I'm doing it during my lunch break. So instead of going out and grabbing a burger somewhere, I'll eat a sandwich at my desk or whatever. And I'll use that time, to work on my book writing. So I just kind of work it in where I can, weekends, of course, that sort of thing.
Okay, so you have your time that you make in order to be an author, and you're publishing at least 1 book a year on the average, more than that sometimes. And so there's a lot of, when you start having multiple books and new stuff coming out, you're marketing the old ones, you're trying to get the new ones going. At what point in time is this, okay, let me rephrase it. The same equation doesn't work for each book as far as being able to enhance your royalties. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, definitely. And my topics are different. My target audiences are different. So you're absolutely right. Every book is different. It's like a different person, right? You have multiple children. You probably know that the personality of one is totally different than the other, even though they were raised in the same household. So yeah, it's kind of like that with books.
So how do you know your target audience, and how do you get to them?
Great question. So for me, I look at the target audience while I'm writing the book, or even before, hopefully. And so to do that, I do a little research. I look at the genre and I figure out. So I write nonfiction. Some of my books are about taxes. I have a tax trivia book and a book of tax quotes that are kind of fun. And so I'll look at other books that are out there. I haven't. Last year I did 3 fun books just with silly quotes from other people, celebrities, presidents, whatever, on different topics. One of them is retirement. It's called The Little Black Book of Retirement Wisdom, which I have right here. And it's already sold over 1,000 copies and it's not quite a year old. So this one's done quite well. But I did the research ahead of time to figure out, do these books sell, this topic, retirement type of books or quote books. And so you just find similar books, you look at their ratings on Amazon, you kind of figure out their average sales. So kind of know going in, the possibility of getting good sales, and you think about the target audience when you write it. I mean, even in the subtitle, amusing quotes for retirees. So clearly, this book is intended for retirees. It's like a perfect gift, if you will, for a recent retiree. Someone's retiring, they need a cheap gift for somebody, and so I thought this would be a good seller, and it has been, and hopefully it continues. But you just think about that target audience. Then you go do the research. Where does your target audience hang out? And so obviously this is older folks. If you're retirees, you're typically, in your 60s. Some are a little before, some are after that. But a lot of retirees are in their 60s. And so Facebook tends to be really good for older crowd, older folks. And so that's a presence where I want to be. I want to hang out. And LinkedIn, there's a lot of professionals and retirees on LinkedIn. So I try to be active and post things that might appeal to that audience there. So that's kind of the idea. Think about where your target audience hangs out online or in person, and get in front of those people best you can.
Okay, so you're doing primarily postings as far as social media goes, and you mentioned a couple. Are you doing
Yes.
any book trailers, any video kind of stuff?
Not really, and that's a great avenue as well. There's so many different things, podcasts, and I've done a little bit of guest speaking on a podcast. I don't have my own, but I've been interviewed on YouTube and other places, and kind of think like this show right here. So I try to get out there and get in front of people in a variety of ways. I do online. I do 10 to 20 speeches or author talks per year on topics related to my books, and that helps a lot. Some of them are, author. I have a couple of author books. One is how to self-publish your book, which I've already mentioned, and then I have another one that's about book marketing, which is the topic today, and it's smart marketing for indie authors. So these books, I'll do author talks on these topics, publishing and book sales, and I'll do it at colleges like Lone Star College. They have it's called Academy for Lifelong Learning, and the target audience there is seniors. So you can talk on anything that's seniors might be interested in, and a lot of seniors are interested in writing their memoirs or that novel they always wanted to write and didn't have time until they retired from their career. So I go in and I'll give a lot of author talks on those topics, how to self-publish and how to write books and how to market. And so that's a great way to get in front of people, and it's in person, although I've done some of those online as well. So I try to do a variety, I guess, is the answer.
Okay, in about a minute, we're going to take a commercial break. After we come back, I'm going to have Dr. Jacqueline pull up the website because your speaking gigs are on there. It's another way to utilize your talent as an author for networking, for sales, for credibility, for all sorts of things. So we're going to go down that road. AI, real quick topic. Do you use AI much in your writings?
I don't, but I experimented with it a little last year. So I was doing the book of quotes. I would pull quotes using AI, and it found some interesting quotes. But after I had to double check, to make sure it was accurate, and it wasn't always accurate. And some of the quotes were similar quotes that they somehow tweaked the language, or some of the quotes were really interesting, but it was obviously made up because the author that it was attributed to was some goofy name that couldn't possibly be real. So I kind of gave up after trying several attempts to pull quotes, because I thought that would be so easy if he could just pull 500 quotes for me. but it turns out it wasn't very accurate, so I couldn't do that.
Okay, when we come back in just a moment, I'm going to ask you for your best quote or your favorite quote, so you can give some time thinking about that. This is Red O'Loughlin on the Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, and we're going to take a short break.
Ever dreamed of hosting your own TV show, sharing your story with a global audience? Now's your chance to shine. At USA Global TV and Radio, we make it easy for you to create, host and broadcast your very own TV show. Whether you're a storyteller, entrepreneur or industry expert, we help you bring your vision to life. With our exclusive interview, live streaming and podcasting training, you'll gain the skills and confidence to captivate your audience. Our global platform ensures your voice is heard worldwide. Join our community of creators who are already making an impact, one show at a time. Step into the spotlight. Host your own TV show on USA Global TV and Radio. Book your discovery call today at usaglobaltv.com. Copyright 2025 USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. To learn more, visit usaglobaltv.com.
Howdy, Red O'Loughlin here. We're on the Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And I'm honored today to have a good personal friend, a fellow author here in the Houston area, Mike Kowis, Kowis. So Mike, please join us again.
Hey, Red.
And I promised to ask you, do you have a favorite quote that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I do. And this one comes from my the little book of quotes about retirement. So it's the Little Black Book of Retirement Wisdom. And one of them, and this is from Chichi Rodriguez. There are a lot of people, if you're golfing fans, you know who he is. He's a silly guy, a real interesting character. But this quote is from him. He says, when a man retires, his wife gets twice as much husband for half as much money, which I think is pretty true. So,
yeah, Chi-Chi's been quite a character over the years, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Dr. Jacqueline, would you please bring up Mike's website? And the first place I want to go to is speeches, because that gives our audience a chance to see where is Mike going to be at next. So the 2025 schedule is there on the right. Mike, you want to talk about any of those?
Yeah, I just signed up to be a speaker. I'm actually giving 2 of the breakout speeches at Author Palooza, which is held once a year at Rice, used to be called Indie Palooza. And so I'll be talking about what authors need to know about small business and taxes. And I'll also do another one on how to build an audience and get book sales. So that one's coming up this October at Rice University. I have a number of them where I'm speaking at local colleges like Lone Star College Montgomery and Lone Star College University Park. And I'm in the works. I'm doing some other behind the scenes stuff to get some other talks together for specific author groups in different cities. And a lot of those I can do by Zoom or something now. Since the pandemic, that's kind of opened it up, because originally it was just local stuff in Houston. And now, because of everyone's so used to Zoom, we can do author talks anywhere in the world. It's pretty exciting.
Dr. Jacqueline, you go over and hit books there, the next column to the left. Let's go down one of these, each one, and just kind of give me a brief synopsis so that our audience knows what you have out there, and then we'll talk later on about where they get the books at.
Sure. So the top 3 you see here, these are they all came out last year, 2024, and they're all just silly books of quotes, amusing quotes. Some of them are thought-provoking. The one that's on, I have another one. It's called Little Black Book of Tax Wisdom. I think if you scroll down, you'll see that somewhere. But these here are just really just some silly books of quotes, and they seem to be quite popular. So the one on the left, the Little Black Book of Tax Wisdom. So there's a quote here. If you know anything about ethanol and how the farmers and they use a certain percentage of corn farmers to make the ethanol. Here's a quote from Paul Gillot. And it's, in case you didn't know, ethanol is made by mixing corn with your tax dollars. So it's kind of funny to me, but I'm a tax geek. So anyway, I have a couple of books. The one on the right is also tax related. It's a book of tax trivia. And then the one in the middle there is one of my hobbies. As you mentioned, I do off-road racing. I had a race last weekend near Waco. So that's a lot of fun. Now, the off-road racing book is not a big seller, and I knew that going in, but I raced with my son. He's a co-pilot. He sits next to me in the side-by-side races that we do. And he also does ATV races on his own now. But it's a fun book to put together, a lot of pictures in it. And it's kind of a neat way to sort of document the good times that my son and I have had the last couple of years, because I have a Texas Off-Road Racing, the original one, and then this part 2 you see here. So even though those books don't sell, but, less than 100 copies each, they're a lot of fun. And it's kind of something I wanted to be able to hand down to my, whatever grandchildren one day when I'm lucky enough to have those. So that was the idea behind those off-road racing books. They don't all have to be big sellers to be a success in my mind,
Dr. Jacko, when you go over to contact up there at the top column, because there's something there that I think that I love. I work with a lot of different people, and I want to get in touch with them. I go to their website, and they have a calendar deal. There's no email, there's no phone number, there's no website. It's just contact me at this calendar. Pick a date and a time, and we'll get. Well, that's nice, but there's other information that you should be willing to. You're in business. You should be willing to share it. And I pulled this thing up, and I was looking at it, and I said, "Whoa, there's a phone number." That's something that I don't see very often, and I just want to tell you that to me, I think, is an A+ on your website, of being able to have a way for somebody just pick up the phone and call you.
Yeah, and I was a little nervous when I'll be honest, when I first put it on there, and I thought I'm going to get a bunch of spam calls and people trying to take advantage, but really it hadn't been worked out like that at all. I mean, I do get spam, everyone does, but occasionally I'll get calls out of the blue from some stranger who read a book and just want to let me know they really appreciate it, they learned a lot, or they enjoyed it, and it's very heartwarming to get those kind of calls. I don't get them every day. I wish I could say I do, but when I get them, it's always it's very inspirational, and it makes me want to write more books.
The other place I want to go is with articles, because you have a lot of value. I mean, a significant amount of value there in the articles part of that thing. If Dr. Jackson would just pick any one of those that's there, I was just kind of browsing through that. Whoa, that's a lot of good information. So you share a lot of stuff, particularly with regard to being an author, running a business as an author, and if you don't know what you're doing, Mike's already done the research for you. In many cases, it's hard-learned lessons that he has spent his time and money on. So I thought that your articles were exceptionally well done. I think there was one there particularly on being an entrepreneur and being an author that I thought you encapsulated very well, with a lot of acronyms that you expanded on to make it easier to understand what's going on. So from that perspective, I thought you did an exceptionally good job.
Thank you, Red. Appreciate that.
Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on down our road of you and marketing and your book success. Do you use a publicist at all, or are you your own publicist?
Yeah, I do all my own marketing, publicist work, etc. Yeah, rather spend those dollars elsewhere than hiring someone. I feel more comfortable, I guess you could say, doing all my own work as much as possible.
Do you have any audiobooks out, or do you have any plans for them?
I do. All of my books, except for one, are available in audiobook. And I found that acx.com, which is owned by Amazon, they have this remarkable program where you can pick a narrator to make your book for you. And if you select a royalty share, that's an option that you can select if you want. You don't have to do it that way. But if you do that, it costs you absolutely nothing. It costs you zero to make an audiobook. So once you create your regular, ebook or paperback, which I usually do, and you have it published on Amazon, then you go to acx.com and you can claim that as your own, and then you can start taking auditions from narrators. You can tell them exactly what you're looking for, like a professional voice, male or female, an older voice, younger voice, whatever it is you're looking for. Someone has a funny personality, whatever it is that you want to be a narrator for your book, and then you can start taking auditions, and you'd be amazed at the quality. You'll see, of course, you'll get some folks that are doing this as a hobby, and it's clear that they don't have a lot of experience yet. Maybe those aren't the ones for your book. But then you get people who are very active. They do tons of podcasts on their own, and they narrate other books, and they're very experienced, and they sound very professional. And again, it costs you nothing. And then the way it works is after you make the audiobook, or after the narrator does and they upload it, they sell it on 3 different websites: iTunes, Audible, and Amazon. And then every sale you share, or you split the royalties with the narrator. So it costs you zero up front, but then you share the royalties going forward. And I've done that with all my books except for one, and it's quite remarkable. Now, I've only sold like 500 books, audiobooks, in the lifetime since I've been doing this. Out of 8,500 sales, I've been doing this, about 8,500. So I do about 1,000 a year in the last 8.5 years. So it's a little over 8,500 total sales, 500 of which were audiobooks. But it cost me nothing, so it's all gravy. It's all extra income whenever I do sell an audiobook. So that's kind of a neat process. I like that.
Do you have any of your books in bookstores?
I do sort of. I mostly no. The answer is no, and there's strategic reasons for that. Now, I've uploaded my book to Ingram Spark, and they make it available to places like Barnes and Noble. But if you actually want it on the shelves, number one, I'm independently published, and so they, their businesses, right? Bookstores, they want the famous folks, Stephen Kings of the world and James Patterson's, because they know they're going to sell. They're taking a risk if they pick an independently published author, self-published author like myself. But I could get them on there if I agree to their terms. You have to agree to give a deep discount, which doesn't bother me at all. You also have to agree to accept returns. And for a small fish like me, I don't want to have to take a risk that Barnes & Noble might buy 1,000 copies today, and 6 months from now say, oh, we still have 600 unsold copies, and I have to agree to buy them back at full price plus $2 per copy shipping or something like that. So that's a risk I'm not willing to take. So my books are available through barnesandnoble.com. So anyone can go there, or they can go into the store and ask the little concierge person, and they can order and have it delivered to the store or to the customer's house, whatever. But they're not going to be on the shelves for the most part.
Okay. Cover art. Where do you get your cover art done at?
Great question. I've used a number of different folks. Lately, I've been using Demonza, and they're out of New Zealand, and they're not super cheap. Roughly $1,000 a title is what I've been paying. But they do both the cover art and the interior formatting for me. So they'll create the ebook with all the hyperlinks in it, and they'll also do the formatting for the print books. And so they do all that for roughly a grand. And I'm really happy with the quality. And I've used other vendors for the cover design over the years, and some are roughly $300 to $500. That's usually my ideal budget for the cover design. And until I found Demonza, I've been real happy with their service. But anyway, I've used different folks, and I've had good experiences. Some it was just slower than others, but I've always been happy with the quality. But if they're taking too long, then I usually move on to someone else, try somebody different, And so that's kind of been my experience so far.
As we're running toward the end of the show here, I know there's some things we wanted to cover, particularly on marketing, because that's the key to your success. So what should a new author just published his or her book, and they're not a marketing aficionado, for lack of a better word, is there something that you know that will work easily for most new authors, depending on the genre, or don't go down this road?
Yeah. So one thing, this is a piece of advice that I learned that it really works well for me in my books, and I recommend all authors, whether they're fiction or nonfiction, consider. And that is my book selling formula is really based on 3 components. And that is, number one, you want to write an appealing book that's a well-written, well-edited book that's intended to be satisfying your target audience. And number 2, you want to have social proof. And that's just a fancy way of saying you want third-party approval of your book. Third party is validating that your book's as good as advertised, essentially. And the last piece of that is visibility. And that's anything you can use to stand out amongst the millions of books already on Amazon. And so You got to focus on all three of those. And if you're missing even one of those components, it's going to hurt your sales. At least that's been my experience. So you really want to think about all three of those things when you write the book. Make sure it's well edited, professional looking cover design. You don't want some sloppy cover. You want to make sure the cover looks like your genre. A lot of people they're looking on Amazon or anywhere else for a book. They only have like a half second for your book cover to catch their eye. So it can't just be pretty or interesting. It has a look like your genre, or they'll keep scrolling and they'll say, oh, that's not the book for me. I'm looking for this genre and this looks nothing like that genre. And they'll keep on scrolling. They won't even read about the listing. So you just have to be very careful and conscientious about having a professional looking cover, well edited, well designed. For visibility, you want to get ads and be active on social media, hang out online where your target audience hangs out. That's the key. And then social proof, you want to do things like be a bestseller, and there's strategies for that. Or you can win book awards. That's another strategy that I usually attempt to do. And so there's different strategies for all those three components, but you want to focus on all three.
Okay, so what you're telling me, what I'm hearing is, before you write the book, you have to have that process in mind, because going back to fix the book after it's already written to get to those three categories you talked about isn't an easy task. So as you're writing the book, you have to keep in mind, who is it being written to, and how am I going to get that in front of their eyes? And is it enough of a hook for them to say, let me buy it?
Exactly. You got it. That's the message right there.
Okay, so how do people get your books? Oh, before I do, is there something else you wanted to talk about today before we get to how people get your books?
No, I think that, the biggest thing for me is if you have a book in you and that's your goal, I say go for it, and just go in with eyes wide open. Do your research ahead of time and figure out that genre and look at similar books and look at their ratings on Amazon and see if they're good sellers, like the top books in that genre. Are they big sellers, or are they not? And so not all books are going to sell, big numbers. And so you just have to be conscientious. And if you really, really feel passionate about writing that book, go ahead and do it, but go in with eyes wide open and know you may not get all your money back, or be careful with your spending, etc. But go ahead and write the book if that's what you want to do. Or if you just are really concerned about the economics and the money, pick a different topic, a different genre, whatever, and maybe one that has more favorable statistics as far as sales, proven sales. And so just be aware before you write the book what you're getting into economically, and that way you'll have a better chance of success.
Okay, so people can go to your website, mikekowis.com. It's MikeKowis.com, or they can reach you at mike.kowis.esq@gmail.com. That's for our audio audience that will be joining us later. With that, unless you have any last minute comments, I'm going to go ahead and conclude today's show.
Yeah, that's it. You can find all my books on Amazon.com. Just look up Mike Kowis. You'll find them all right there.
Fantastic. Mike, thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed it. You provided a lot of value, and that you always do. So thank you again. And I look forward to seeing you in person one of these days here in the near future.
Thank you, Red.
Okay, this is Red O'Loughlin, and we're concluding today's show called The Wise Ones with Mike Kowis. Talked a lot about his successful authoring career as an independent publisher, and 8,500 books over the last 11 books he's written, and 8 or 10 years worth of time that he's been writing. We have another show coming up literally in about 21 minutes called Talking Heads. It's a show that I do by myself on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And I pick a topic. My topics generally have something to do with some aspect of health and wellness. I decided a short while ago, probably November, December, that rather than do a series of 4 or 5 or 6 weeks on a particular topic like cancer or weight loss or whatever, that I would do a single topic. And I think that's been working out pretty well. Some of these topics I used to take 4 or 5, 6, 8 weeks on. But today I'm talking about nutrition. And the focus is, what would I do? Knowing what I know, let me share that with others. So today we're going to talk about nutrition. And how do I approach nutrition? What do I think about it? How does it work for me? And try to dispel some myths about it a little bit. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and conclude our show. This is the Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Brett O'Loughlin signing off. Take care, y'all.
In a world full of noise, misunderstandings, and interruptions, master the art of listening with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor of USA Global TV and Radio and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. Elevate your listening. Elevate your life. Join a global learning experience in person or via Zoom. Reserve your spot today. usaglobaltv.com/book-your-session or drjacqueline.thinkific.com. Join Dr. Kerbeck's listening courses or hire her to unlock deeper connections and authentic conversations.
We face daily cyber risks, spending over 7 hours of screen time, including 4.5 hours on mobile phones. This convenience comes with significant dangers, with cybercrime costs predicted to exceed $10.5 trillion by 2025. In 2023 alone, seniors lost over $3.4 billion to cybercrime. Our goal is to make social engineering concepts of cybersecurity easier to understand. We work with business teams, senior living facilities, investment companies, and educational institutions, both individually and in groups. We offer real-life examples to help you recognize and prevent attacks, with sessions available both in person, in selected regions, and remotely. Schedule your training session, or to learn more, contact us today. Call us at 847-845-9360. Email us at info@cybersecurityeasy.com. Protect your team and family with cybersecurityeasy.com.
5 Little Known Secrets for Dementia Caregivers with Tracy Cram-Perkins.
Hi there, I am Tracy Cram-Perkins, the host of the Dementia Home Care Show here on USA Global TV and Radio. I am also the author of the book of the same name. And you'll see this QR code. This is for an extended version of the same talk. So if you want to see the full hour-long version, feel free to scan the code and go to that website. Stick with me. We'll talk about 5 little known secrets to make it a little easier to do dementia caregiving. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a healthy aged brain, age 55 and above. The one you're seeing on the right is an Alzheimer's disease brain. It is in moderate disease. It is shrinking. It has holes in it. The memories that were in those holes no longer exist. When you're learning something, let's say in kindergarten, you learn how to tie your shoelace. Well, then by the time you're in 2nd grade, your brain remembers that information from tying the shoelace and applies it so you can learn more quickly how to tie more complex knots. So the brain is hardwired to do this for us. So it helps us learn faster so it doesn't take as long to acquire knowledge. The brain is looking for the information and they pick the closest to wherever that hole is. Let's look at some tips that we can use to help do that.
These are 5 simple tools you can use as a dementia caregiver to help your loved one. The whiteboard is a useful tool in recording the day's activities and the answers to repetitive questions. The calendar clock is a very useful tool to orient your loved one on the day, the date, and the time, and remind them of upcoming appointments. The communication cards are a great tool to bridge the gap when they can no longer tell you what's wrong. And then there's the pill minder for when your loved one is still able to take pills but needs prompting. The final tool I want to share with you is the memory book. It tells your loved one's story. It's a great tool for distraction, redirection, also as a conversation starter, and telling you where they are in their story so you know how to answer their questions.
Music is probably the most powerful tool in your toolbox after laughter. Music is a way to maintain connection. It sticks with your brain longer than any other thing, including reading. When you're having an issue with somebody, you can play their favorite music if you move them to another room, something that makes them happy, or you can start singing songs together from their childhood. These are some of my favorite books for caregivers. My show airs on the third Tuesday of every month, and you can view past episodes on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
This program has been brought to you in part by Tracy Cram Perkins. Connect with her and order her book at tracycramperkins.com. For more information about Alzheimer's disease, support resources, and how you can help, contact the Alzheimer's Association at 1-800-272-3900 or visit their website at www.alz.org. They offer 24/7 helpline support and a wealth of information to assist you and your loved ones.
Have you ever felt unheard? Like your words float into a void, leaving you invisible and disconnected? How about feeling judged, when assumptions overshadow your truth, leaving you misunderstood and defensive? And then there's that moment when someone offers solutions you never asked for, dismissing your feelings and leaving you more frustrated than before. It doesn't have to be this way. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the listening mentor, understands. She's here to help you reclaim your voice, build stronger connections, and create meaningful conversations that inspire understanding and mutual respect. Through her groundbreaking books, online and in-person courses, and interactive workshops, you'll learn how to navigate life's most challenging interactions. Discover the power of elevated listening and transform how you communicate. Master setting boundaries and asking permission to protect your peace. Learn to recognize and release judgment, fostering empathy and true connection. Dr. Kerbeck also offers personalized coaching, one-on-one or group sessions, designed to fit your unique needs. Whether in person or virtually on StreamYard, her guidance will empower you to thrive. You don't have to struggle alone. The path to deeper connections and better relationships start here. Visit drjacqueline.com or usaglobaltv.com. Join a global community of empowered listeners and transform your life, one meaningful conversation at a time. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor. Start your journey today. Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.